Legion of Superhero is basically a Supergirl film. It's Superman kind of film. It feels like a Justice League film, but it's more of Supergirl and a different time and totally different characters. This feels like, especially with the opening, it reminds me of Injustice 2. There's a lot of similarities with the villain and the main character. It started off in a very shaky way. I actually started doubting if I was going to like it because of the beginning. The beginning is woke. Let me put it out there. It's kind of woke because they spend like a few minutes trying to tell something happens, and then the mom is telling Supergirl just how awesome he is. They stopped everything to just tell Supergirl just how awesome of a person that she is. So I was like, I'm not going to like this. But as we went in, after the 25th minute, things get interesting. After Superman is introduced, just know that after you see Superman and Batman, things swap, things become super interesting. So Legion of Superheroes is based on a different time. So they're not like in our current time. Superman has a device that can take someone to the future, because again, Supergirl in our current time is kinda, she's not used to the technology, she's not fitting in. So Superman thinks that it's a good thing to send her into the future where the technologies are advanced enough to make her feel a bit comfortable. So that's where we meet a different group of superheroes. We meet a variation of a particular character. Basically, we meet, and this is not a spoiler, it's out there. There's a Brainiac grandchild, it's Brainiac 5, and I liked what they did with the character. I'm not going to spoil it for people. I love what they did with it, the relationship between that character and Supergirl, and how it plays into the full story. The action set pieces is awesome. And if you're asking yourself, you love, say, something like Sam Liu's animations, this is not directed by Sam Liu. The action is good, but it's not to the level of Sam Liu's work. The animation is also good, but the one thing that I did not like that I saw in a lot of scenes is that everything just feels contained. You don't get the scope of an animated film. You don't see a lot of the backgrounds, and if you see them, they are limited, they are enclosed. There's a lot of enclosed space. It feels claustrophobic. The only place that I felt a bit of freedom is a scene whereby Superman and Supergirl are seated at the farm where Superman grew up. You can see it feels open. It feels like the animators paid attention to a good picture, a wide image. But most of the time, even with the city fights, everything just feels a bit crammed in, a bit claustrophobic. The action is awesome. The new character, superhero, in this particular different time are very interesting. We get to see different powers, but that is whatever I was about to say is a spoiler. But during that time, they are an interesting team. I would consider them to be Teen Titans rather than superheroes, because she is included in a group of superheroes who are training. They're not like, because something happens to the superheroes, so they are more of the junior superheroes who are being trained, and their powers are different. Their powers are unique. There's a young lady who can multiply herself. You remember Suicide Squad? The person, the detachable man, the person who can detach their arms. There's a kid who can do that. There's one who can become invincible. There's a bouncy boy. There is obviously Brainiac 5, very interesting character. I love what they did with the character, and I love that he was How do I put this? It was a pivotal plot point in the story. Let me just put it that way. But generally, this is a very good animated. It's not the best animated story. The animation was different. Now, here, I don't want to confuse you guys. I'm a graphic designer, so I'm a creative person, so I understand the approach with the animation. It felt like they were using vector instead of the normal pixel way of working on the two. There's a difference between Photoshop and Illustrator in the world of graphic design. Now, when you use Photoshop, it's more of what you're used to, what you usually see. When you use vector artworks, it's more of Illustrator. Illustrator gives you very clean lines, really clean lines and clean fields, and the shading and the rendering doesn't feel very rough. The rendering is very clean. Everything is defined, the shadows are defined. So I think they used more of vector artworks for this particular film because the lines are extremely clean. And it's a good thing for some scenes, it's a bad thing for others, especially with the villain. The villain, the design looks fantastic on paper when it's not a vector artwork, but when it becomes a vector artwork, you can see the sharp edges, you can see some sharp lines that create like wonky edges. And yes, you like what they've done with it, but there's some just visible errors with the line works. So that for me, I felt it, but for a person who is not concerned about line work and how the design of the characters, yeah, it's really not a big deal. Legion of Superheroes is a very good film. Just give it the first 25 minutes. If you feel that Supergirl is not likable, just give her like the first 25 minutes. She becomes very interesting when the plot begins to move. Now the villain is a group called the Cycle. Familiar, but they've done something very interesting. They've done something dynamic with that particular concept of the circle, and it's not villains so that they can just fight the hero. There's a very good reason for them to exist, and it actually makes sense in our current state of the world, in our current state of terrorism and just people being evil for the sake of being evil. It actually makes a lot of sense. And the final boss, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and the way it's brought into the story makes a lot of sense. The Superman character, the Superman and Batman character, Batman is Batman the way you know Batman. He doesn't mess around, and is very clear, straightforward, and what he wants, and he informs Superman about what he wants. And he is very familiar. He's the Batman that you know. He's the badass Batman that we all know, and I love what they did with him. And Superman. Now, Superman is a very interesting character. When they introduced Superman, he was much younger. When he was hanging out with Supergirl for the first time, before he introduced her to the future. That Superman, I think, is the Superman that James Gunn was talking about. He's much younger. It's much charismatic and kinder and softer, and not laid back in terms of action, but he's much more of a likable Superman, and he's younger. So I think that is what James Gunn was talking about, and I have a feeling that that's the Superman that he will be going for. Apart from that, we also see Flash. We also see a bit of Flash. And I'm like, it's okay. It doesn't get into, because it's a Superman story, it doesn't really get a lot of scenes around Superman, around Supergirl. So yeah, that's basically it. Legion of Superheroes. If you love animation and if you're just looking for something good to enjoy, it's worth it. If you don't like Supergirl, don't watch it. if you don't, I don't know, it's good. If for example, if it was out of 5, I would give it a 3.7. If you understand what I'm saying, just a 3.7. It's an enjoyable movie, not a Sunday evening. It's just an enjoyable film. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Oh, before I go, there's one more thing. There's a stinger. The film has a stinger at the end, so don't just turn off your TV once you're done or go to something else. There's a stinger. There's a very, very interesting stinger. I don't know if they're going to do something about it. It's one of those whoa moments.